The clerk Wright call the roll.
Mayor Johnston.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick.
Here.
Councilmember Blatz.
Here.
Councilmember Francina.
Present.
Councilmember Haney.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick, will you lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, Jeremy, I didn't turn my mic on earlier. Yeah, we're in session. Okay, presentations. Do we have the one? I think we do.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have the introduction of our new Chief of Police.
Okay, and I understand we have Gary Pettis, the favorite son of Ojai.
Gee, thank you.
Thank you for coming back.
Thank you. It's a little melancholy to come in this room again because I expect to see Monty Witter sitting there, and I expect to see Sue Horgan and Ray Hanstead and Joe DeVito and Steve Olson, David Burry, rest his soul. And not soon after I got here, Mary DeVito would sit in the back with me, and every Tuesday council meeting, she'd bring my favorite chocolate to the meeting. So it was added incentive. But this is kind of special to come back and do the introduction of your new police chief. But truly, happy Valentine's Day, because at least only my wife's mad at me, I think. Well, maybe my daughter too, but thanks, Jim.
Sorry, I apologize. I apologize.
Yeah, right.
But it is a privilege to introduce him. He's probably the most qualified captain in the sheriff's office to take on this role. And I'll read a few things and it'll explain truly why, those of you that don't know him. For the community and for the council that haven't had the pleasure of being with Jim. The funny thing is, we made a big mistake when we hired him because he was 19 years old and needed a note from his mom to carry a gun and buy a gun. Matter of fact, his mom bought his first handgun for him for the sheriff's department. California law, what it was, and a proper law, he needed a note from his mom to carry it. So we decided the best place for Jim was probably in corrections and let him spend a few years in there and mature, which he did, and then he came to the Ojai station. And this was his first patrol area. And I think it grabbed onto him like it grabs onto most others that get to know the community and the people that live here. And he was recognized up here as Deputy of the Year in 1996 for the Ojai Station, which was quite an honor. He was promoted to senior deputy from the station, but stayed in the area because that's when the Honor Farm was working. And that's where Jim went. From the Honor Farm, he went out to the Camarillo Police Department, and there's where he got other skills in his toolbox in special enforcement. He was a detective there and also made Officer of the Year for the city of Camarillo. Jim's had something on the ball for a long time, there's no doubt. He was promoted to sergeant, did the watch commander thing, went back to the jail like we all do on the sheriff's department. But probably what really brings together his skill set that brings him to this position was when he got transferred to the city of Thousand Oaks, where he first went before his captain promotion, where he worked in crime prevention and really understand getting to know the community, what the needs of that community are, listening to what the needs are, solving problems and putting it together as that sergeant role. I think that's one of the things that got him launched into his next promotion. Well, he stayed in the city of Thousand Oaks and was the second to the police chief for the last 5 years. And I have to say, without slamming the chief there too hard, he's done a lot of heavy lifting there. And the experiences he drew from that city that he's bringing here will really show in his leadership for police services for the city, in his handling of the budget, understanding how to make things work, how to listen to the needs of the community, how to address problems and get them solved. Because Jim has a lot of tools in his toolbox on how to get the problem solved for a city. And he understands from working in the city of TO those 5 years that acting in that administrative role, administering police services, is much more than being a cop. And I know that's one thing I learned up here. I learned more about community planning and public works, and I mean, it was just an excellent assignment. The other part of Jim is he brought half the people here. I'm not going to introduce his family because I'm going to get some of them wrong. I guess he comes from well stock because his dad's a doctor and his father-in-law is a doctor. His wife's here, Tracy, and his two girls, Vanessa and Savannah. But I'm going to ask Jim to introduce the rest of the crowd. But Jim has his bachelor's degree in vocational education from San Diego State University. Jim then got his master's degree in administrative leadership from the University of Oklahoma. I think one thing Jim's really proud of, he is a graduate of the FBI National Academy, which was a big accomplishment seen by a lot of police chiefs around this nation. It brings a whole nother perspective and another facet to Jim and his leadership. One thing that I find really interesting on how Jim connects with people, in the audience is his fellow National Academy graduate and friend Jack Howard and his wife Trish, who flew out here from Chicago to be part of this and witness this and support Jim. So Jim has the support in his life that he's going to help bring and support your city with police services. So I'm very proud to introduce Jim Fryhoff as your Chief of Police.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Undersheriff. He's 100% responsible for allowing me to go to the National Academy from the department standpoint. And my wife is the other one that's 100% responsible for allowing me to go. For those that don't know, the FBI National Academy is a 10-week program in Quantico, Virginia. I have two young girls that are 10 and 12, and I was gone for 10 solid weeks. I was able to fly home twice during that time, but I think I was on the ground for a total of 30 hours, so I got a chance to see the family so they didn't forget what I looked like, and then flew back so that I was back in time for class. So thank you very much for sending me. Thank you for allowing me to go. It was a great experience. I was there with 225 officers from 23 countries. If there's any problem that we are looking to solve, collectively we can email each other and just say, hey, what are you doing about this? Anybody have any policies on this? Likewise, I get a lot of requests coming in the direction. Here in the room also is the Assistant Chief of Police from Oxnard, Eric Sonsergaard, who is a graduate also of the FBI National Academy. And I talked to him before I went to find out, what do I need to know? And he said, take half as much clothes and twice as much money as you think you're going to need. It's the most expensive free training you'll ever go to, and that was no joke. It was, it was very expensive. So I'll do the introduction so we can get on with the meeting. I know, like I said, half the crowd here is with me. So my wife Tracy, my girls Vanessa and Savannah, my mom and dad Michael and Adrian Fryhoff, my brother Mickey is over there, my sister Lisa, her boyfriend Gary, and her two kids are running around here someplace, Maria and David. Then I have my father-in-law and mother-in-law is Dr. Robert Fierro and Armida Fierro, my sister-in-law Debbie, and then you met Jack and Trish Howard. Thank you very much for coming all the way out from Chicago. And my assistant chief, who's my administrative sergeant, is Shane Matthews. And Shane and I worked patrol out here together in the 90s. And then I brought him out to Camarillo when I was in charge of special enforcement. He worked for me out there again. And so I'm thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to work with him here again. Like the undersheriff said, I really love the community. I was looking forward to being able to have the opportunity to come back. And you know, from working with the sheriff's office, you don't just get me. I have an entire network that I can reach out to within the office. Dave Kenny, your former chief, he's a phone call away. My current boss, Rick Barrios, he's the commander, oversees all of West County Police Services. He came. My two assistant sheriffs, Steve DeCesare and Bill Ayub, as well came. So thank you very much for coming to support me here. I don't think I forgot anybody. I think I got everybody. So thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here.
James, thank you very much. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming in the nice introduction. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a short intermission so those who came mostly to wish James well on his new assignment can slip out if they don't want to have to sit through what we're about to embark on. So we'll take a very short break here. Thank you all for coming. Let's see.
I got bullets, yeah.
Reports from council members. We have a presentation on water, I think.
Yes,
Bill?
Mr. Spandero? You ready to do our presentation update for us?
I'm ready.
Other presentation.
That's not it.
That's it.
either. Water.
It looks like water.
There we go.
Okay, there it is.
Celebration's on.
Okay,
Welcome, Angelo. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was here about a month ago talking about water, so this is the 1 month update. And I think we all feel like we have a cause to celebrate after this past month's rainfall. It's been a welcome sight, and this is a family out having a picnic in the rain, which is something that we all may feel like doing. And of course, this means the drought's over, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Unfortunately, Ventura County is still the only place in the state that has an exceptional drought classification right now. So, no, the drought's not over. Let's relish the water while we can, but let's not lose sight that we still have a problem here. Okay, so let's talk rain. When I was here a month ago, I told you I was watching some rain gauges around the area. And this chart shows the various rain gauges that I've been watching. And White Ledge Peak is significant because that represents the headwaters of Coyote Creek, which flows into the lake. So this is as of February 11th. So it's had about 25.5 inches of rain to date. All of these rain numbers up here are in excess of what the total rainfall was at these stations last year. So we're doing quite well for rainfall compared to last year. If you take a look at H030, that's the Ojai rainfall, we're almost at our yearly average at 19.1 inches. So rainfall compared to last year is going quite well. How about Lake Casitas? Lake Casitas storage as of February 11th was a little over 95,000 acre feet. We were up about 6,000 acre feet since January 10th when I was here last. And it's kind of funny, 6,000 acre feet represents what we lost in evaporation from the lake last year. So as we mentioned before, stage 4 drought declaration occurs at 75,000 acre feet when the lake gets down to 75,000 acre feet. So at this point in time, we're a little over 20,000 acre feet away from stage 4. And what we've done, we've gained a little bit this past month on the stage declaration. Oh, I forgot to mention that we have 20,000 acre feet assuming there's no sediment in the lake. If there's sediment in the lake, then that's going to subtract from that number. And I'll talk about sediment here. I just spoke with Casitas today, and this sediment study is about halfway through as of today. They've completed the aerial survey. The aerial survey is going to map what our new lake capacity is. The aerial survey covers the entire surface area of the lake grounds. So we'll know we're not going to be at 254,000 acre feet anymore for capacity of Lake Casitas. It's going to be something less. We just don't know yet how much less. The bathymetric survey hasn't been done yet, and that survey is going to evaluate the pool of water that's in there right now, how much of that pool of water is sediment. So that's going to be done shortly. The report should follow shortly, so I don't think, hopefully by next month, I'll be able to report on how much sediment is in the lake. Talked about stage 4 being delayed. We had predicted before this rain that stage 4 was going to occur in September of this year. We've slipped about 4 months, and so now if we get no more rain, if the drought continues like it has been, stage 4 is going to occur in January of 2018 at this rate. Stage 5 as well is going to move ahead about 4 months. So instead of stage 5 occurring in February of 2018, we're going to slip it out to June of 2018. So if things go sour, we're a little over a year away from going into a stage 5 drought declaration. Stage 5, we talk about this, and I'm not sure we've gotten into stage 5 in any great detail about what is stage 5. What does stage 5 mean? Well, if we look at Golden State, and most of the city is tied into Golden State has in their manual, if you will, that when we hit stage 5, that is when the lake gets down to 75,000 acre feet, and Golden State kind of follows along with Casitas' drought declarations. Golden State says that there will be no outdoor watering, and that the allotment is going to be 50 gallons per person per day when we get into stage 5. And that is based on a 4-person household, so 50 gallons per person per day. Casitas operates a little bit different from Golden State, and this is according to their current Water Efficiency and Allocation Program. The acronym is WEAP. And they're saying in stage 5 there will be no residential non-essential use, and that is outdoor watering and anything that doesn't contribute to the household. And their standard is a little different, a little more confusing, but it boils down to about 62 gallons per day per person from Casitas in stage 5, and a 50% reduction for all other customers. And the Casitas in stage 5 is no turf irrigation would be allowed. So we would start to look much like Santa Barbara is looking now, that there is no green grass in Santa Barbara. The thing about Casitas is that they can change these rules, these standards, anytime the board wants to. The board has the authority to go in and change the WEAP whenever they wish. I know Casitas is really, really nervous about declaring a stage 5. So we don't know what's going to happen. April 1st typically is when Casitas will come out and say what they're planning for the coming year in the way of a drought declaration, or how they're going to approach the drought. But the rules can be changed just by a board vote at Casitas. Our other water source, the Ojai Basin, there are no rules or regulations or stated conservation measures if we get into a stage 5 condition. Hopefully we'll see something more from them when we get into their new management plan. Out of water condition, we publicized before. Previously, it was going to be January of 2021 if everything continues the way it has been. So we've moved that ahead again 4 months to May of 2021. A little over 4 years from now, if we get back into the drought, we will run out of water. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Robles diversion because I think there's some misunderstanding about that, and I spent the past week or 10 days talking about or learning about the Robles diversion and how it works. And as my understanding was that there early in the rainfall this past month, there was a lynch mob forming on the bridge that goes over the Ventura River on Highway 150. And the lynch mob was really, really upset because there was water going down the river and there was no diversion going into the lake through the diversion canal. So what I'd like to do is to call off the lynch mob and try to put some credence into what Casitas was doing in the way of diversion. This past January, we put about 4,000 acre feet of water into the lake, and of that, 578 acre feet was diverted. So a very small percentage of water was diverted into the lake in January and in February as well. However, the diversion canal really does work. In 1969, there was a record diversion of 50,000 acre feet into the lake. And that was after 89 inches of rainfall in Matilahaw Canyon. The diversion works best during big rainfall events. That's why it was designed. When there's a lot of rain upriver, that's when the diversion canal can really move a lot of water. So what restrictions does Casitas have for diverting water? The first thing they have to do is obtain a license, which is revocable from the State Water Resources Control Board to divert water. They have to get approval and get a license to even divert water. In addition to this, there are 2 agreements or 2 regulations that are imposed upon Casitas for diverting water. The first is a trial operation criteria. This criteria was written in 1959 when the lake was put in. And the criteria essentially says that anything below 20 CFS, you have to let go down the river. And the reason for that is because at the time, the people downriver, that is from the diversion canal to the ocean, all the other groundwater rights holders wanted to make sure that the lake just didn't suck off all their water. So this trial operation criteria was established so that all the downriver people, including the city of Ventura, got all the water that they thought they were entitled to. This agreement, I've read it, it's very, very subjective. There aren't any real hard and fast rules with this agreement. Casitas must be extremely careful in how they interpret how much water is going down the river, because all of these rights holders have the option to file complaints with the State Water Resources Control Board saying, Casitas is sucking off too much water. Casitas is in danger of losing, if those complaints are upheld, they're in danger of losing their license to even divert water. So they tend to be very, very cautious and very conservative when they look at how much water is going down the river. The second agreement, or the second regulation, is called a biological opinion. This was written in 2005 when the fish ladder, or the fish passage facility, I've practiced that. You say that fast, fish passage facility, that's 3 times. This was written in 2005. Now here we're into steelhead territory. That fish ladder was put in so that steelhead could move upstream past the diversion canal. Prior to 2005, there was no way for steelhead to get past the diversion canal. So this biological opinion, and I have looked at it and read it and read it, and it is extremely complicated. It was established in 2005, and there are 3 flow rates mentioned in this opinion. One of the flow rates is that during the fish augmentation season, which is basically the first 6 months of the year, anything 30 CFS and below has to go down the river for the steelhead. And that is in a non-storm event. A storm event is defined as a flow rate in the river of over 150 CFS. So we have a storm event definition. The 50 CFS is the minimum flow that's allowed during a storm event. However, there are 2 different categories of storm events. One is a single storm event, and the second category is multiple storm events that are close together. There are separate tables, 10-day tables, establishing flow profiles for those 2 different 10-day periods. As I mentioned, the fish passage season occurs about the first 6 months of the year. And something else that happened this year is, I talked to the chief engineer at Casitas, and because the river has been idle or dry for 5 or 6 years, they chose to let a lot more water run this time. You can imagine what kind of things would accumulate in the riverbed over 5 or 6 years. So instead of diverting as soon as they possibly could, they perhaps this year delayed it a little bit to rinse the river bottom a little bit. So the season commences when the Ventura River estuary sandbar is breached. That's another qualification on how they can divert water. The biological opinion does not come into play until that sandbar is breached. Okay, here's a picture of the Ventura River estuary. We're looking off to the left, we're looking north up the river, and you can see the Main Street Bridge and the Highway 101 bridge going across the estuary, and off to the right is the Pacific Ocean. And you can see that the estuary is close to going into the ocean. Well, fish passage season doesn't start until that river breaks through that sandbar. That's another qualification for diversion. So in a nutshell, diverting water is not a simple process, and Casitas, if they don't do it right, can you imagine how many people downstream are in a position to complain if they think they don't have enough water? So Casitas is walking on eggshells, in my opinion, to make sure enough water goes down the river. And I believe that Casitas certainly wants to divert all the water they possibly can. They got more water, they can make more money. Let's talk about the basin a little bit and the rainfall in the basin. This is a great chart that we just got out of the OBGMA this past week. And this chart, the blue line is a well level, water level in the Lago Messina well, which is west of Gridley, north of Grand. And the green line on that chart is rainfall, and the rainfall scale is off to the right. So you can see what has happened to the water level in that well based on rainfall. So we have a good increase, maybe 20 feet increase in well level there. And according to what Jordan Kierhan, the newspaper, had the other day, the last time I reported to you was a storage level in the basin on October 27th. So we're up about 6,000 feet from October 27th projected storage in the basin. And I showed this chart to you last time too. If you look at the bottom axis, that's rainfall in downtown Ojai. for the year. And if you pick out that 20-inch mark, that's a good mark to pick, and go up, you can see that we're in the 6,000 feet area from this chart. So what it did to me was validate that this theoretical study done by Daniel Stevens' company is a pretty good chart. So it corroborates the 6,000 acre feet of increase of storage in the basin. I talked to the Ventura people in the Ventura River groundwater basin, the VRWD, and Bert Rapp last week told me that their water level is up 26 feet in the river basin. And he is really thrilled with that and thinks maybe they can bring 2 more wells online if this kind of trend continues in the upper Ventura River groundwater basin. I talked to Miners Oaks, and I did not get a response from them about their feelings of water level. So I'll come to a point of what can you do, what can we all do with some of these issues going on? And I think the primary thing to communicate is let's show up at these meetings where things are being decided for us. The decisions made here are going to affect all of us. And I want to bring out what's available for going to meetings at Casitas. We have a finance committee coming up on the 17th. We have a board meeting coming up on the 22nd. That board meeting is going to be interesting because we're supposed to get an update on the horizontal bore project that Casitas has initiated, where the plan is to drill horizontal wells into the Santa Ynez Mountains north of Casitas. There should be a report coming out at that board meeting on the status of that project. And I had a little insight to that, and they're receiving quite a bit of flack already from forest watchers and from other people saying, you can't put a hole in our forest. So there's going to be some interesting things going on there. Water Resources Committee meets at this time, and it's just what the title says. They talk a lot about water at this meeting, so that's a good meeting to attend. If you're interested in the rec facility at Casitas and how that's going, that's discussed at this committee meeting. The executive committee meeting has a couple of the higher level guys from Casitas, and that's interesting to hear them talk about what's going on and the things that they're planning. Personnel committee meeting, I'm not so much interested in, but if you're interested in how they're handling their personnel problems at the lake, this is a good meeting to attend. So these are always posted on the Casitas website. So I encourage you to think about, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get done, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And I'm convinced that people showing up at these meetings and speaking, just a lot of people showing up, makes a difference in how things move forward. The next Ojai Basin Groundwater Management Agency meeting is coming up on February 23rd, and I just understood today that it's going to be in these chambers. A lot of things going on with the OBGMA right now, and I think the public has a great opportunity for input, for comment, and to make things change. There are some big budget issues at the OBGMA right now, and they're not simple issues to get sorted out. It's going to be a challenge for them to become sustainable financially. So this is going to be a great thing to watch. A new management plan is in development, which is going to be much more comprehensive than the previous one, and there's a great opportunity for input and comment on how they're putting a new management plan together. And this, in my opinion, this is the most critical part of what's going, assuming they can remain financially viable. This is a critical part of the future for the OBGMA, is how they're going to manage their resources in the future. The Groundwater Sustainability Plan, which is something that has just been submitted, I'm sorry, it's called the Alternate Demonstration by the OBGMA. But it's an abbreviated groundwater sustainability plan that's been submitted to the state, and there are comments that have been put into the state, and that's on the agenda for tonight here to discuss the city's comments to that plan. So that's going to be around for a while and deserves attention. I was told this past week that there are going to be improvements to the website, and it would be a great opportunity for public comments on what would you like to see on the OBGMA website. The Casitas website, I think, is far ahead of the OBGMA website to keeping the public informed. I think they've got a long ways to go to make this a user-friendly website. So back again, please, let's step up, stand up, and speak up. Whoops. While there's still time. And we have a little bit of time. So let's keep singing for Ojai.
Thank you, Hank.
Thank you, Angela.
Okay.
May I ask a question of Angela?
I'm sorry?
I have many questions, but I'll try to, it's hard because as you go along, I have questions, and let me think if I can organize my thinking. So I've heard you say, you and other speakers say a number of times that it's almost inevitable that the city of Ojai is going to go to stage 4 and possibly stage 5 level, whatever, stage 4, stage 5.
If the kind of drought that we've had the past 5 years continues.
But it just seems like what we ought to be doing at this point is preparing for that stage. It doesn't make me nervous to declare that stage now rather than waiting. It makes me more nervous to wait. And it seems to me that we should be doing all kinds of practical things, like deep mulching our gardens. Deep mulching, because the day may come when we are allotted 50 gallons of water and we can't water outside. So we should be preparing for that day now. Seems to me that we should be in some kind of emergency preparation mode, because what I see all over the city happening is just the opposite. Everybody's still leaf blowing, everything. Like today, I couldn't believe it, my neighbor, the ground is already like cement, which means that you have to do a lot of watering to get the water to permeate the plants. We should be educating people that they should be doing the opposite. They should be deep mulching everywhere. That's just one comment I have. Thank you.
Well, my primary objective here is education.
Yes.
And people need to understand and appreciate perhaps that there is a potential emergency on the horizon. Conservation and how we protect our resources that we have now is a very important part of anything we do. It's not the only solution, but it is very important. And yeah, every single individual could take steps to preserving the resources that are here right now.
Okay. Thank you, Angela. Let's see, where are we here on we got, I guess, council reports, if we can,
I'll just finish with 3 quick comments on my report.
okay?
That's what actually,
Go ahead.
Number 1, Chief Farha, I hope you have to deal with some flood emergencies this weekend. I hate to say that, but we need it.
No, absolutely.
I think they're predicting pretty heavy rain. So I hope you have to deal with something.
Thank you
That'll
very
be good
much. I
for
know I
us.
was talking to Norm Plott about that right before the meeting, that we have a conference call tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get some information on how severe the storm is going to be, so we know what to brace for, but absolutely, we need the rain.
Yes, and then number 2, I think it's worth noting that the OBGMA aquifer and Lake Casitas have gone up roughly the same amount, roughly 6,000 acre-feet each. I think that's worthy of some contemplation. And then say a prayer for DWR, that they can hold it together in Orville. They're not out of the woods yet. In terms of scale, it's worth contemplating that at the current rate of outflow from Lake Orville, if that was put into a completely empty Lake Casitas, they would fill it to the brim in less than 36 hours.
Paul?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just briefly. As part of my assignment outside of the council work, I sit on the board of Gold Coast Transit District. And for those of you at home, that's the bus service for Ojai, as well as the paratransit service, where you see the vans and smaller buses that say Access on the outside of them. That's all administered through Gold Coast Transit District. And for the last year and a half, we've been moving towards the construction of a new administrative and operations facility. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, currently in Oxnard, the facility that we've been working out of is around 3 acres, and it allows for 52 buses. The new administrative and operations facility, which is going to also be constructed in Oxnard, but rather than downtown Oxnard, where it currently is, it's going to be near the Auto Center in Oxnard. In fact, across the street from where Costco is, next to one of the auto dealers. That's, instead of being 3 acres, it's 15 acres, has the capacity for 156 buses, so considerably larger, and it is going to be absolutely zero when it comes to usage of water, and all of the high technology things that are done in terms of washing buses and things like that. But the exciting part is that we've been moving this towards letting the bid for the construction. And at the last board meeting, we authorized a contract with a company called Icon West to be the general contractor on the building. And we awarded the contract in the amount of a little bit under $36 million. And construction is going to immediately start. The other interesting thing is the contract calls for having a minimum with the contractor and all subcontractors, 20% of the workforce has to be hired from local workers, which was very important to the board. So we're very excited that that's moving forward.
Fine. Thank you, Paul.
So real simple, Mayor, we met as the Libby Bowl Arts Commission this morning at 8 o'clock, and we had a real productive meeting as far as creating our fee waiver package. We're typing it up. I'm going to have a meeting with Amber and Steve. I'm going to send you a copy and have you review it and make some comments back to me, and then I'd like to bring it to council as soon as we can. So I'm hoping, like I discussed earlier, that we can get it on the 28th calendar. But I'm waiting we'll wait till it to be finalized. I'll wait for your comments, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Susan?
Well, my council report's a little bit unusual. I had the opportunity to spend a couple hours at the police department on Thursday, because unfortunately, I discovered to my horror that the person that I have been emailing since January 5th was not my property manager. It was a highly sophisticated, I guess you would call real estate scammer. And unfortunately, what? Isn't it on?
Press the button.
Well, I'm going to have to repeat my exciting report. Did you turn it off?
No.
Okay, now that it's on, proceed.
Okay, I spent a couple of hours at the Ojai Police Department. I want to compliment Deputy Anderson and Detective Hollowell for handling my case. I discovered on Thursday morning that I was the victim of a very sophisticated real estate scam. And to make a long, sad saga short, I ended up depositing my March rent money. I wired it to the real estate scammer. And I thought that I would recognize a scammer. We have a wonderful pamphlet available at City Hall and at the police department on identity theft. But these scammers are so sophisticated. The email was identical. It had my old emails underneath. There was absolutely nothing to indicate that I was speaking to emailing anyone other than my property manager. The property manager, he would do things like offer me, I was late with my rent, which incurred a $100 late fee, for example. He said he would waive the late fee if I deposited the money into my landlady's Wells Fargo account. That happened back in January, and fortunately, I realized that my rent check had already cleared, so I thought his bookkeeping was sloppy, and the scammer was very polite and thanked me. So that month, I didn't get scammed, but this month, he had a different trick up his sleeve. It's unbelievably clever, and I had a computer expert look at my computer, nothing wrong on my end, but it was my property manager and the scammer is still active because my emails do not go to they're diverted, and his emails to me, they come to me, but they disappear. I mean, his account is still hacked. Yeah. It's very sophisticated. Okay. People have no idea. I had no idea how sophisticated these scammers are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Be on the alert.
Yes.
And the sheriff's office does put bulletins out periodically when anybody starts working the territory, because some of these are old scams. This happens to be a new and more sophisticated operation.
And as you know, the scams don't ever stop. I mean, they're profitable, and even if only 1% of people fall for it or get scammed, like you said, they're very sophisticated. It's still 100% profit. It's very easy for them to do. If you go to our website, I'm sure we have all the information you want about scams. See, but we also do put out press releases frequently. If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
I'll tell you that.
Thanks, Chief.
I need to add one more thing, and I'll be quiet for the rest of the night.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to it.
In my case, this was a known scammer. He has been arrested 3 times. The FBI is on it. So that,
That's great
he's
news.
from back east, operating in Ojai.
It's great news.
I don't know if there's a lot of solace in having been conned by a well-known one, but I'm glad, I hope they nail him. Okay.
You feel so stupid.
Okay, my report is basically a request of the council. I'm going to place on the agenda, probably on the 28th, a brief item for a goal-setting session, and I'd like you to be thinking about maybe which Saturday in March would be a good time for us to get together. The budget is coming up. The city manager is getting the budget calendar prepared, and there are a lot of things that are involved, and I think that it would be a good time for us to sit down and set our priorities and have a good conversation over it. So anyway, that's just a heads up. Okay, we are now to public communications, and this is the time when we hear from the public on non-scheduled items. We neither applaud nor boo our speakers, and the council can't take any action on anything that is brought up, but we're more than happy to hear from you. So let's see what we have. I'll call the first name and then the second one for on deck. I have Ron, Ron, our librarian, Solorzano, is that? And with Renee Roth on deck.
All right. Thank you, members of council. My name, again, is Ron Solorzano. I'm the regional librarian for the Ojai Valley. And I'm just here to give you a quick update on what we have going on at the library over the next month or so. In a couple of weeks, on February 28th, we're going to be hosting our Makerspace librarian, Antonio Apodaca. He'll be coming out to put on a STEAM activity for kids featuring, it's an activity called Snap Circuits. It's kind of put together a little working circuitry there. It's geared towards ages 9 and up, and these STEAM activities that we do about monthly are designed to teach participants about science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So that's one of those that we have ongoing there. On Saturday next month, March 4th, we're going to have a panel of authors visiting the library to lead a workshop on creating, producing, and promoting your book. It's a workshop that's going to help participants open up their creative selves, whether they're tackling a fiction or a nonfiction project. On the second Thursday in March of next month, Opera Santa Barbara is going to come back to our library again for another free noontime concert. The last visit they had was very recent, very, very great success. We had a lot of folks come into the library, packed our little space. It was wonderful. And we're just honored to have them back again next month. And again, we're going to have them in May, on the second Thursday of May as well. Finally, the second Saturday in March, we're going to be hosting our next CSU Channel Islands lecture. This one's going to be put on by Dan Marr, who's going to give a talk titled Thinking Like a Mountain Lion. Marr's going to speak about some recent and transformative new approaches to human-wildlife conflict management, for those kinds of folks whose homes border those of our wild neighbors. So it could be very, very useful, very informative. More information on all of these events can be found on our website, www.vencolibrary.org/Ojai. Also, on our website, you can find more information about reserving our new community room, our new meeting room. We have many groups that have already approached us about using the space for meetings and events, and we just want to make sure that everyone in Ojai is aware of this resource to the community. So you can contact us for information on that as well. The last thing I want to mention, we've been working with the Ojai Studio artists. We're going to be working with them to have them curate a space in the library, our small meeting room off the side of the reference desk, They're going to be bringing in a collection of works to display there. They have one in already, and they're going to be rotating that quarterly. So you can absolutely feel free to come by and see. We'll have some fresh art in there. It was always my intention to have it be rotating art, but time gets away from you, and before you know it, it's been a whole year with the same stuff. So we're very thankful to them for taking that over. That's all I have for now. So as always, feel free to reach out to me or come by the library if you have any questions. And thank you so much for your time.
Hi, thank you, Ron. Renee Roth with Sharon Bushman on deck.
Good evening. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. So Mayor Johnson, members of the council and staff, my name is Renee Roth, and I am not trying to replace Deborah Pendry because she is irreplaceable. I just want you to know I'm here because Severo Laura called and said he couldn't come and announce our upcoming events. So we have 2 upcoming events I wanted to let you know about. Our winter salon is this coming Thursday on February 16th from 7 to 9. And it's called How We Are Nurtured by Nature. And I think this is a really appropriate topic right now. Through the ages, many have turned to nature to lift their spirits. And I know I did this weekend go down to the swimming hole. And I have to say, I haven't been to the swimming hole for 5 years because I knew there was no water there. And it was so exciting to see water in the river. So this salon is from 7 to 9, and it's just a chance for people to talk about how important nature is. And we live in such an abundant area where there are so many opportunities to connect with nature. So that's this coming Thursday. And then the Ojai seed and plant swap is Saturday. This is Saturday, February 25th from 1 to 4. I don't know if any of you have been to a seed swap. It's pretty amazing. The place is filled with tables and children and farmers and growers. And we're talking seeds and plants, and it's really fun. And the whole family is there to enjoy themselves. I will also be there at the Save Our Water Ojai Valley table, and I'll be talking to people about how they can understand their water bills, because the new water bills are coming out with the allocations and with rate surcharges due to the drought. So I just wanted you to know about those things. I'll be there as well to talk to people about the drought. If you have any questions, you can call us.
Okay, thank you, Renee.
And do I give you these?
Yeah. And is Sharon in the audience?
Good evening. I'm here just as a private citizen. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a hydrologist. But I did read over the Ojai Basin Groundwater Management Agency alternate plan that was listed on your website. I don't have a solution for our water problems, and I'm glad to see that you're talking about it a lot. When I did go through the plan, I saw that it states that if it rains enough, the basin is recharged. If not, Casitas Municipal Water District will provide water for us. However, as we've been noticing the last few years, there's not been sufficient rain. And what's more disturbing is that Lake Casitas has dropped, from what I understood, to 37%, even with the rains we've had. This indicates that we're not replenishing our basin enough, and we cannot depend on water from Casitas to meet ours and the rest of Ojai Valley's and part of Ventura's needs. They're all ones that draw from it. If we only depend on rainfall, which continues to be below average. Although we have 85,000 acre-feet maximum capacity in our basin, please be reminded that not all is recoverable or safe for our needs. Listed in one of the charts that was in the plan, the alternative plan, it said that from 1975 to 2016, storage, water level, and precipitation table I, the basin is modeled to have only half its capacity in the last 3 years. The plan also states that rain has been 9 to 10 inches average for the last 3 years, but, as they quote, modeled and observed phenomena indicate that any precipitation less than 11 inches, which is what we've had for the last 3 years, on the valley floor is taken up by, I hope I can say this, evapotranspiration, and soil storage. Our basin is not just used for our potable needs, but is also depleted by the evaporation and the soil storage. But also, there's discharge outflow into the down gradient bedrock and alluvium, and for watershed habitat. All of those are a huge drain on our confined basin. According to the plan, the alternative plan, our basin has relatively limited storage capacity. It appears that the San Antonio Creek spreading grounds have been damaged, according to the plan, in prior years and have not been restored. And that's another strain on recharging our basin.
Okay, can you
Cons-
wrap that up?
Yes,
This
yeah.
is on the agenda, and
Okay.
we agree with you.
Well, the State Water Project would be an option. However, if you've seen recently the scare for Oroville Dam, if it were to collapse or if there were an earthquake, we couldn't access that water either. And then Casitas is empty and the basin's empty. Anyway, we don't have enough water resources to carry us through a long-term drought. Our basin is not being recharged as we have fewer rains. Lake Casitas continues to be drained. Possible
thank you very
population
much.
growth just adds more strain, just population growth also. We have to be very careful of development. Anyway, those are my, and I did send this to you also in
You
advance.
sent,
we
did you
did.
send it to all the council people?
Yes, we
Yes.
we
Thank you.
received it, right. Okay.
Sharon, I just had one comment. Thank you for studying and being a part of this process. For you to be able to gather all the information and to compile it the way you have, you just clearly demonstrate that you're a part of it and that you're in it to win it. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, the consent calendar. We have a motion to,
Move to approve.
I have a motion, second. We have a motion and a second. I guess if there's no objection, okay, unanimously approved. Thank you. Okay, we'll keep moving on to the number 2, public hearings on the update of users and regulatory fees. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our Finance Director, Rudy Livingston, will give a very brief introduction and then turn it over to the consultant, who will make a very brief presentation. And also to note that there's a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And we open the
Livingston?
public- Are we ready to open the hearing first?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. The public hearing is now open.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We've been working on updating our master fee schedule for several months now, and after several different iterations and things, we finally got to the point where we're bringing it to council. I'd like to introduce Terry Madsen from Clear Source Financial. He has a lot of experience in this field, doing these fee studies and other things for various different government agencies throughout the state of California, and so he comes very high qualified. We have a couple of things that I wanted to point out that are that one of them did not make it into the admin report, but I wanted to note because it is included in the resolution. There's a provision in the resolution that we used to provide the city manager authorization to do new fees up to $50 without bringing that to council. We felt that was a little bit low for the nature of things, and we have included in the resolution to raise that to $100, so he would be able to make decisions on fees up to $100, and then anything beyond that we would bring to council. The second item is that we left on the dais for you at the beginning of the meeting a revised resolution. As we were going through this afternoon and discussing with Mr. Summers and Mr. McClary, we noted that we had, in the admin report, we had mentioned a change in some wording for the appeal fees, but we inadvertently omitted that from the resolution. And so the document that we left on the dais has some new language in there that specifically talks about the change in the language, and we also have a lined out copy of the old fee schedule that shows what the language used to be and the inserted new language.
So just really quickly, if I could jump in, because this is not very extensive, if you go to the resolution that was handed out on the dais, and if you go to page 2 of 3, under section 2, adoption of fees, paragraph B, you can see the underlined language that is added there to provide the clarification on this appeals to city council, modified to read a process appeal to city council or staff. The issue that we were running into with the fee schedule was that there was no fee established for appeals to the city council of decisions from the Historic Preservation Commission. There was for the Planning Commission, and so this would establish that fee.
Okay, thank you.
And we have presented a summary of some of the highlights of this in the administrative report, but I would like to cede the time to Mr. Terry Madsen to provide a presentation to us.
Okay.
Good evening. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight. As mentioned, I'll be walking briefly with you through the fee study that's been recently completed by the city. Specifically, I'll be highlighting the fees that were examined as part of the study, the legislative guidance that we receive when conducting studies, that we follow when conducting studies, and then provide an overview of the proposed changes for your consideration this evening. So the items that we're examining are commonly identified as user fees or regulatory fees, and what differentiates them from taxes is that these are fees that are charged for a request by a specific person or driven specifically for a specific person in the case of a building permit or items like that, as opposed to services that you provide to the community as a whole. Generally, for services that we provide to the community as a whole, such as patrol services or fire response or public works, those services are funded from general fund tax dollars. But when someone's receiving a specific benefit, then commonly user fees or regulatory fees are collected in order to offset the cost of providing that specific service. Cities throughout the state collect user and regulatory fees. They collect them as an alternative revenue source to taxes. So they use taxes for commonly funded services, and they collect fees to offset the cost of providing specific services. The types of fees collected include planning fees, building permit fees, specific police and fire fees like police reports, things like that, or false alarm response. For this study, we examined encroachment permit fees, parks and recreation related fees, and administrative fees. The guidance we receive when setting fees comes in two primary forms. Number one is that when we identify the costs of service, those costs should be allocated generally in terms of benefit received or expenditure incurred in providing a service. So we would say a more intensive service would most likely be associated with a higher fee for service than a less intensive service. And the other overarching guideline we have is that when we identify items as fees, in order to avoid them actually being taxes, the fees cannot exceed our cost of providing the service that we're charging for. So if the service costs us $150, we are not a market-based entity for a lot of these fee categories, so we can't just say, we'll charge you $300 for it so that we can have some profit margin here. If our cost is $150, that is typically our legal ceiling. There is one exception, and I highlight it here because several of the fees that are in your fee schedules that are proposed for adoption fall within this category. And that's when we're dealing with rental of city facilities or rental of the public right-of-way. We often identify those with this general category, within the general category of fees, but they operate closer to rents. They're set at the discretion of the city, and you can set them similar to another market-based type rent. So I have a high-demand facility. I can charge more for that facility than a low-demand facility, or you're receiving exclusive use of a city facility. I'm not limited to the cost of service ceiling that we'll be going through for the remainder of the fees. So I keep referencing this phrase, cost of service. What we're trying to do for the most fees is identify the city's cost of providing service and then use that to influence the actual fees that the city will determine to collect. And cost of service, generally the way we look at it is it's a component of an hourly rate for service and the estimated time to provide service. So we identify an hourly cost of providing service, and then we estimate how long it takes to provide that service, and that informs our legal ceiling. That is what is our cost of service. That sets our maximum amount. And this is a picture that illustrates what we look at. So when we identify a cost of service, the city makes a decision whether to recover all or a portion of that cost. And there's lots of things that influence whether you would recover a portion of that cost or all of it. One is it a very specific benefit to one entity, or are there other community goals and policies like encouraging compliance or encouraging beautification efforts or encouraging youth participation, things like that, that might be policy-driven decisions of why we might collect less than the full cost of service. But the reason we include this slide is to say, once we identify a cost of service, anytime the city elects to charge less than the cost of service, it's covering the difference between the actual cost and what it's charging from other city resources. So the cost didn't change, it's just where the recovery of cost comes from. So if it costs me $100 to do something and I charge $50, it still costs me $100. I just have to find the $50 elsewhere. And typically that elsewhere is from general fund, unobligated city revenues. Those are the things you'll probably be discussing in your study session coming up in March, and you're trying to figure out how are we best going to use our city resources. This is a common topic of discussion, is how much of these fees should be subsidized, or should we look for more cost recovery? So our goals were to help identify the cost of providing services, to look at fee calculation methodologies and ensure that fees correspond to services provided, to estimate the revenue impacts of any proposed modifications, and to ultimately prepare an updated schedule of fees for your review. In summary, there were 54 different fees that are included for your consideration tonight. 31 of those fees are proposed to remain unchanged. 11 of them are proposed to increase. 8 are proposed to decrease, and there are 4 new fees proposed. Every one of the increases, decreases, or new fees is outlined in your administrative report. I want to walk through a big picture overview. For administrative fees, the category of fees that we call administrative fees, this is typically like providing access to public information and public records. These fees generally target less than full cost recovery, and frequently state law limits the amount we can recover for providing public record type services. For encroachment permit fees, we are generally targeting full cost recovery with a few exceptions. And encroachment permit fees are fees for city staff or contract service providers performing plan review and inspection activities and permit processing of people desiring to perform work within the public right-of-way or access the public right-of-way in one form or another. Generally, we target full cost recovery for these. However, for things like block party, curb gutter, sidewalk driveway, resident driveway modification, that kind of thing, time extensions and certain tree trimming permits, there's less than full cost recovery targeted. And then we have minor increases proposed for tennis court rental and gym rentals. These are services that have gone many years without fee increases. I think it's like $1 an hour or $10 an hour for certain activities, but not major increases, but some increases proposed. And then your staff has developed a modified structure for sports field rentals that identifies different user groups. Nonprofit groups would pay a different rate than for-profit users.
How much more of the presentation do we have on this before we get to the public comment?
You have 2 more slides.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I'll speed up. The second to last slide is new fees proposed. There are 4 new fees proposed for your consideration. They are providing access to materials for public records, a medical cannabis dispensary and delivery permit that you've been discussing, and then for when people request to have public records mailed to them instead of picking them up on site, we can recover the cost of that mailing. And then finally, for folks that are delinquent in their payment of encroachment permit fees, recommending a late payment penalty fee. And then finally, fiscal impacts. The majority of the fees examined, as we mentioned, 31 fees are proposed to remain unchanged. The fees that are proposed to change aren't significant changes, so we believe the fiscal impact is fairly immaterial. It's mostly a fee schedule cleanup and a recalibration of some fees. Tonight you're asked to receive the public comment, to consider adopting this resolution, and as Mr. Livingston mentioned, also to consider that modified language of the appeal fees, and referencing that appeals to City Council include apply to appeals from Historic Preservation Commission or any other commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Terry?
Well,
Here, go.
okay. I don't know if you're the person to answer or our finance director. Everything looks to me very reasonable and fair. And I read but you know, there's the big increase is the permit for tree trimming.
Yes.
So I would hope that we would, I mean, I read the rationale, but it's a huge increase. Do you do a public outreach so that this doesn't just jump at them out of nowhere? Is there how does that work? When the tree, you know, when do they find out?
My understanding, and you may be getting imperfect information from me, but my understanding from the city engineer is I think it's one company that this would probably apply to, and the city pays a significant dollar amount every year to have a report prepared that influences that tree trimming, and so this would just recover a portion of the costs of that report.
Francina, could I help answer some of that?
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
annual permit, as I understand it, is targeted on right-of-way contractors, like people working for Caltrans.
That's correct.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
We
Thank
have
you,
been-
that's great.
We have
Yeah.
really not been covering our costs in terms of handling oversight of those things that are citywide over the entire year.
Okay, thank you. Good, excellent.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I mean, you asked for questions. Real quick, I'll have a couple more later, but while you're here, where does the 60% overhead factor come from? On page, attachment B, Exhibit A, page 2, at page 2 of 9, or otherwise known as 2-64, at the bottom of administrative fees, it says, "City personnel costs will be billed in quarter-hour increments at the currently adopted compensation rate with a 60% overhead factor."
Yes. So the compensation rate is an hourly rate.
I got that. Where does the 60% overhead, the 660 come from?
Then you have typically about a benefit rate of 47% and an allocation for services and supplies and divisional overhead.
That's where you get the 60. You add to the benefits percentage.
You got it.
Okay, thank you. And then, real quickly, I guess the last are detailed questions I can wait for later. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions of the consultant? If not, I have one card on this. Steve?
Ready when you are, sir.
Okay, we're ready for you.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and staff. Steve Quillisi, I'm a resident of the city. On item 2, I had some questions. I don't know that I have issues, but that may depend on the answers to the questions.
Okay.
On table 2, number 8, the tree trimming, I take it that's a fee for a professional tree trimmer. It's like a business license or something, an annual business license. Is that what that means? If not, what is it? Second, it's listed under encroachment, so I presume it means this is only to cover work in the public right-of-way. If I hire someone to come trim trees in my yard, some of those trees are in the public right-of-way because it's close to the curb, and others are not. So where does this $1,500 thing come into play? Second, it's one of those that on the slides you just saw said that's one of those that where the recovery is less than full, and it's still gone up by almost a factor of 4 from the current. Secondly, number 10 in Table 2, Sarzati Park, it says fee varies based on user type. I'm kind of curious what that means, and I went to the city website and looked up fees and fines. I spoke with Mr. Livingston this afternoon. It turns out the stuff that is on the city website it's called Proposed Fee Changes, Master Fee Schedule, Proposed Changes Index, is out of date, and it has no relationship to the tables that are in your package now. So my question stands, what does fees vary based on user type mean, and does that apply only to Sarzati Park? Does it apply to Libby Bowl? I'm not sure where we're going with that. And finally, Table 3, number 8, the encroachment for oversized vehicle permit. Is this to allow parking, overnight parking in the public right-of-way? If not, what is it for? Thank you very much. I hope to get some answers.
Right, you're going to. Thanks, Steve. They're good questions. Okay, I don't have any other public comment, but the consultant, I assume, is prepared to address the...
It'll be a combination of me and the city engineer. So I'll take 2 of your questions, and then the city engineer will step in for the third. With regard to sports field rental and fees varying by user, if you look in the proposed fee schedule, what you have is an identification of various user groups. So a sports field rental, we now decide what fee will be paid based on what group is renting it. Group, for instance, Group 1 is a City of Ojai co-sponsored event. Group 2 is an Ojai-based youth nonprofit group. Group 3 is Ojai residents, Group 4 non-residents, and so forth. And you have varying increases in fees depending on what group you are. So Group 2 pays less than for-profit business Group 5. And then your second question was about oversized vehicle permits. This is a common permit you see throughout the state, and what's happening is more and more cities mirror the fees adopted by Caltrans. So you have trucking companies or whatever that contract with service providers, and they are just intending to pay Caltrans rates, which are $16 per day or $90 per year. My understanding is I don't think you actually hardly issue any oversized vehicle permits, but the reason we modified that is because you are a regional outlier. At the current amounts, you are one of a handful of cities throughout the state that might be charging those numbers. So we moved you to where the rest of communities in the state are and say you're going to mirror Caltrans rates, which is what the oversized load operators are used to paying and are ready to pay.
Okay, we're mirroring the rate. What is the function? What are they paying for?
they're paying to transport oversized loads through your city, so.
Okay, and so it's a surcharge sort of a,
I don't understand what the funds actually get used for, but if you had an oversized load, let's say, you don't just drive through a city. Well, the sheriff might be able to speak better about it, but you could actually be ticketed if you don't have like the proper type of oversized load permit authorization to make sure you're on the right streets and you are following the parameters of oversized load guidelines. But $16 a day and $90 per year is typically what we see, and it's the rate set by Caltrans.
Mr. Mayor, one point I can add to that is that the authorization to charge the fee derives from the fact that oversized loads impose a greater than the average level of impact on the roads that the city pays to maintain. The justification for Caltrans to charge the fee on the road that it maintains is the same.
so if they make a regular delivery to your town, $90 covers the.
If it's an oversized load, that's what it is set to recover. Although, of course, the council could choose to recover less than the full cost.
And we actually find these people and make sure they've got a tag? Right, yeah, okay, good.
Technically, they should
I don't know,
cover
does that answer your question, Steve? I mean, that's what it's for, whether, how effective it is, I don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Grant has an answer to come up.
Right, good evening, yeah. And I think, yeah, there is, whenever there's oversized loads brought into the city, they do contact us and get a permit for it. I think it's a little different, though, with Caltrans. They've got heavy-duty roads, and some of the city roads here basically were never even built with Basin or anything, so there can be a higher impact on them. But we don't get that many. And I think the old trucks used to be a much more intense load also. Now there's so many axles on these heavy load trucks that spreads it out, so it's not as high as an impact. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Mm-hmm. I think the other question was, about the utility tree permit. And so there is an individual tree permit, and sometimes to access a private lot, they need to do that from the street. So it's a public right-of-way tree permit to access private property. And then the other one is the annual permit that typically is for utility companies, and that's generally SCE that does a lot of tree trimming in the public right-of-way. And they get the annual permit for that.
I have a question for Mr. Grant, Mr. Mayor Johnson.
Yeah, sure.
If that's all right. Greg, we've had some discussion in the past, and there's been other back and forth over the past year about these annual permits, particularly for utility trenches. That would be people like Golden State or the Ojai Valley Sanitary District,
right.
And the Caltrans contractors for tree trimming. That would also be subject to the annual permit, if I'm not mistaken.
The Caltrans is on Caltrans right-of-way, so they wouldn't be.
Okay. I thought that there was going to be some oversight on the Caltrans.
There is oversight. There is oversight on the tree trimming and coordination on that, but there's not a permit or any kind of fee involved.
Caltrans has voluntarily subjected itself to
They
a coordinated
voluntarily, okay.
oversight between the city and Caltrans, but we don't have the power to impose a fee on
All right,
them.
what about the electric utility?
And SC, they get the annual tree trimming permit.
The electric utility would be.
Right.
Right.
And they're primarily the one that use it. Most of the other utilities.
The reason I'm bringing this up is we've had some discussion about what our real costs are of providing oversight on a mass scale like that. And we've had this is a relatively small addition to the blanket permit fee for utility trenches and tree trimming. Well, the utility trench is relatively small. The annual permit for trees is much higher. I think we all agreed that we were way over cost on the tree trimming annual permit. Do you think that's still, that's a relatively healthy percentage of cost recovery for the annual tree permit, so let's say the electric utility?
I think the line item there is still fairly accurate. The column that says fee at full cost recovery, about a 3,024, is roughly right.
So you think 1,500 is still, is not, I'm wondering if it's enough, in other words, based on some of the data that I've seen.
It shows proposed cost recovery at 50%. I think we're still roughly there. We're going to be in the $2,000 to $3,000 per year range. We keep thinking it'll be dialed in, but they're pulling a lot of trees during the drought. There's a lot that go down.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm concerned about is we're applying the same cost recovery to these utilities as we are to individuals, right?
Well, the cost recovery proposed at that line item is 50%.
But, so individuals and utilities are at the same cost recovery
Individuals,
percentage?
there's no individuals that really get that annual permit.
No, I'm talking about the single site permit. Is that at 50% too?
No, it's
That's at
not.
100%.
It's at 100%.
100%, yeah.
All right, so we in effect are charging more on individuals in terms of cost recovery than we are the utilities that can pass it on their rate base.
That's true.
That's correct.
And I'm questioning why we do that.
Right, I agree.
I think part of the discussion on that was, it was before a very low fee from the previous setting, around $390 to $400, and the idea was to bring it up in 2 steps towards the full recovery. That was a discussion.
Well, it would take more than 2 steps at that rate.
Well, I think one thought was go 50% this year and 100% next year. I think, SCE has been obtaining the permits and paying the fees. You might recall up front when we just started monitoring SCE a couple, 3 years ago, there was some legal wrangling. They were going to oppose and fight it, but they've backed off of that.
We resolved that, I believe.
I think so.
And then we have the Golden State and the Cemetery District. 1165, 1 permit fee for all the digging all year.
It's $11.65 for the annual permit, and then for each excavation, it's
On
an
top of
individual
that.
fee. Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so what we are, the goal then is to ultimately get the cost recovery percentage equalized between what we're charging our citizens and what we're charging these utilities. Is
Yes.
that our overall goal?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Steve?
Thank you, sir, and I very much appreciate the answers to all but one of my questions, either from staff or from the consultant. My remaining question has to do with the fee varies based on user type at Sarasate Park, and I'm asking, is that the same kind of rule that is applied to Libby Bowl? Do city-sponsored events at Libby Bowl or city co-sponsored events pay less of a fee for the use of Libby Bowl than a nonprofit does? And does the nonprofit pay less than a for-profit unit? I think the answer right now is no. And my question would be, if I'm correct in that, if the city sees its way clear to vary the fees depending on the user for Sarasate Park, why is the city not doing the same thing for Libby Bowl? Thank you very much.
Now, I have a quick question. You are talking about the bowl itself and not Libby Park, correct?
Yes, sir, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is Steve's understanding correct, that it's not, there isn't that?
There is a nonprofit rate for folks who rent Libby Bowl, and there is a commercial rate, and the nonprofit rate is discounted. And trying to remember off the top of my head, I think the nonprofit is $600 per day, and I want to say the commercial is somewhere around $1,200.
But is it similar, is it similar to the Sarasota kind of a schedule?
Haven't looked at, Terry, could you answer that question? I have not looked at those lately.
Yes, it's the same rationale. Sarasate Park, a park area rental would be, here's an example, $50 a day for a nonprofit and $70 a day for a for-profit. So it's the same concept, nonprofit discounted rate, for-profit higher rate.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I have just one last question. When's the last time the rate schedule was adjusted?
The rate schedules have been adjusted. The most recent update was in 2015, and the former finance director did an internal study of these, and we made different modifications over a period of time rather than bringing them all together. And so so it's been a couple of years. Our intention is to be regularly evaluating these fees on an ongoing basis so that we can keep them where they should be, higher, lower, whatever they need to be. I would also note that this study does not include our building and planning fees, which we anticipate beginning a new study to tackle those fees here very shortly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do I have a motion? Oh, do I have to close the hearing?
I was just going to say, if you could close the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
Steve, you have anything else you want to ask before I close the hearing? Okay, hearing is closed, all right. Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we receive the public comment, which we've done, and that we adopt resolution to update the master fee schedule for city services for administrative fees, facilities and service fees, and encroachment fees.
You have a second?
You have a second?
Question on the motion.
Moved and second, okay. Roll call?
Question on the motion, sir.
Question on the
Yes. Does this scope of this motion solely apply to these update fees with no implication of approving, let's say, the building department and community development department fees for another year?
That's my motion.
They're separate.
This motion would maintain all of the existing fees that are not changed by this, by these attachments.
Maintains everything with these updated.
Correct.
Does it approve all the other fees for another year?
It approves them until the council takes any further action.
Thank you.
Okay, moved and seconded. I thought you called for the question. I didn't realize you
I'm
were going to
sorry.
ask. That's okay. Roll call?
Mayor Johnston,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz,
Yes.
Councilmember Francina,
Yes.
Councilmember Haney.
Yes.
Okay, great. Motion carries. Okay, item number 3.
Thank you, Rudy.
Yes, thank you to our consultant, too.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we now have the second reading and adoption of a tree ordinance. Mr. McClary.
Mr. Grant, who's been working on this for quite some time, will be giving a brief report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At its August 9th, 2016 council meeting, the city introduced an ordinance to amend the tree preservation ordinance and to only make the following amendments to the existing ordinance. So there was basically, this is a summary of the 3 items that were changed on that existing ordinance. Number 1, they recommended modification of the definition of the mature tree to provide that a mature tree means a tree meeting the existing size requirements, which is 12 inches at diameter breast height, and that it is one or more of the species designated by a council resolution, which has not been done yet. And number 2, it included adding a requirement for a tree permit for any pruning of more than 25% of the canopy of an oak, a sycamore, or a heritage tree. And number 3, it included adding a fee for the city to contract with an arborist to monitor tree maintenance by public utilities, set at a maximum of $2,500 per year. It was just discussed. As recommended, the tree committee and the public works director met and evaluated which trees species to recommend to the city council for designation as mature tree species. As shown in the administrative report, there was 3 recommendations for council consideration, from the least stringent first to the most stringent last. Number 1 was designating 9 trees from the city's community forest management plan. There's a list, a preferred tree list inside there, so it's the 9 trees is listed in the report. The second, slightly more stringent approach would be to designate all 35 trees from the preferred tree list in the community forest management plan. And the most stringent approach, which was preferred over the other 2 by the tree committee, was designating all tree species except for the Mexican fan palm and the Canary Island date palm. So this is a recommendation for the resolution, which could be adopted. Those are 3 resolutions for your consideration that are attached to the report, if you want to adopt those tonight. There's some people that considered, if this second reading was complete, that there might be an opening for mature trees to be, if it wasn't defined by resolution, then obviously there'd be a bigger opportunity to prune or remove mature trees without a definition by the council. So that's the brief report. Be glad to answer any questions.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick question, Mr. Grant. One of the things that is current in our existing ordinance, and it's specifically, I think, may not be specific to the Mexican fan palm, but I know it relates to that, is if somebody on a private property wants to remove one of those palms, it's not a protected species, so that it can be removed. But if it's on a commercial property and it is of a certain size, then it's kind of quasi-protected. And I'm wondering, is that philosophy or public policy still implicit within this new ordinance?
I would say the existing ordinance, I think that's, as I understand it, where a lot of this came from, was a couple of years ago, maybe now, some time ago, a fuss about a Mexican fan palm that are protected if they're 12 inches or larger in diameter. And any tree 12 inches or larger is protected on a non-single-family residential lot.
Right.
So that means, yeah, on a commercial lot, like you're saying, it's protected. So, and that's kind of where the tree committee came from. They felt like, well, that was the issue that we were trying to address, and that was really number 3. Go ahead and pull from the list the Mexican fan palm, the canary fan palm.
Okay.
So they're not protected at all anymore, but all other trees at 12 inches or diameter.
Okay.
Or greater
So
will be.
there's no distinction that I could find in this staff report from a single-family residence to a commercial lot?
For mature trees are only protected on non-single-family residential lots. They're not protected on single-family residential.
Okay. Thank
So-
you.
So right now, yeah, on single-family residential, any tree can go. As long as-
Mayor Johnson?
Bill, go.
I want to suggest that these are really 2 issues before us. One is to approve the second reading, and the second is to take up the issue of the resolution. And so in an attempt to get that done, I'm going to make a motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance, and then we focus on the resolution. So I so move.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is the resolution that which designates the trees?
That would be an action that's optional in the revised ordinance.
Okay, so the adoption of the ordinance is not expanding or doing anything other than tuning this thing up on
It opened-
like trimming of the canopy, you know.
Yeah, the second reading makes the further definitions, and then opens up council for the opportunity to adopt a resolution designating additional species.
Yeah, does that mean to add or subtract?
Well, right now, the way the reason for this ordinance and the reason to get the second reading out of the way is that right now, our citizens were being faced with having to pay a mitigation fee for any tree more than 12 inches, whether it was desirable, invasive, or whatever. It didn't matter. There was no distinction. And a good example of that was a Mexican fan palm, which is basically more or less an invasive trash species. And so the idea was that rather than I think that was not the intent in the original ordinance, and so we're attempting to tune this up. And so the idea was to have a system set up where we would designate trees that need the additional protection by council action, rather than just have everything that's more than 12 inches is treated the same. So that was the intent. That's why I said let's get the second reading out of the way first and then move on to the resolution is my intent of my motion.
And quickly add to that, yeah, if a tree was hazardous or dead, there was no permit fee, there's no mitigation for that.
As further discussion on the motion, Mr. Mayor, could I direct a question for our city attorney? Is there anything in this motion that is problematic from a legal standpoint for us then to move on to the actual approval of the resolution where we're going to be designating certain species?
No, the motion on the ordinance can be acted on first, although I do wanted to jump in on that. If there are public comment, you must take public comment before you vote on the motion to adopt the ordinance. I don't know if you've got any cards or not, but if you have, take that.
But not on the second reading. Do we need a public comment?
Yeah, you need to take public comment if any exists, if any cards
Okay.
are submitted
On the
before you
agenda.
vote on the second reading of the ordinance, and I
Okay.
thank you for the opportunity to make that point.
All right.
Once that's done, there's no impediment to adopting the ordinance first and then debating the resolution separately second.
Okay.
Okay. I do have one card that I'll call here in a minute, but not having been involved in this in the early stages, in your opinion, Mayor Pro Tem, does the ordinance itself improve and streamline or reduce the burden on citizens, or does it increase the burden on citizens?
My considered opinion is, yes, it decreases burden by providing clarity and rationale, and opportunity for fine-tuning by council.
I have one card, Renee Roth.
There's two more coming, and we usually take Kathy Nolan first.
Okay. Is anybody else out there who'd like to speak on this that hasn't turned a card in? If they,
I submitted my card, John.
Yeah, you're, I think you're ahead of it.
yeah, where I did.
And I'm just trying
Okay.
to, I try to focus the issue on, I don't want to get involved in a lot of debate on the resolution when we haven't passed the second reading yet. That was the intent of my motion.
Okay, so there's now. a good
There is
time.
no resolution to pass if we don't do the second reading approval.
Right. Okay. On public comment, now is a good time?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's worth noting that if the commenters wished only to speak to the resolution, they could ask to speak after the council votes on the ordinance. But we have to at least offer the opportunity to speak first.
Okay, so we'll speak once on the ordinance, and then we'll come back on the resolution. Okay, Renee?
Okay. Hello, my name is Renee Roth. I am speaking as just a member of the community. I have attended some of the Ojai Tree Community meetings. I'm currently in an arboriculture class. I want to take the test. I'm very concerned about our trees, especially during the drought. I live in a community within the city limits. It's a multifamily on 8 acres. We have 40 liquid amber trees that need to be removed. They are dying. They don't belong in Ojai anymore. They don't survive in this climate. And I'm concerned about the cost of removing those trees, let alone getting a permit for dying trees. So I just want to make sure that we're really clear about the conditions where a permit would be required. If trees are diseased, if they're dying, if they need to be taken down because they're a hazard, that those trees need to be removed, and that the city is not going to have impediments or put up walls that are going to make it more difficult for people to get permits to remove dying trees. That's all. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Renee. I appreciate your comments. Peter Cantle.
That was a really powerful statement, thanks. My name is Peter Cantle. I live on Gridley Road here in the city limits. Thank you for your time, thank you for your volunteering. I know you're doing this on your own nickel, so thanks. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I have 2 points I want to make, and I'm not really sure if they go to the resolution or the ordinance or just what, so I'm just going to put them out there. I've got a concern about how a mature tree is defined. I think what's recommended is overly broad. The list includes kind of a remarkable breadth of things that it would include fruit trees, non-native maples, Peruvian peppers, Brazilian peppers. All of those would be captured in this definition of mature trees if they meet the DBH standard. And
So that's not exactly true.
well, that's the way I'm reading it.
No, the ordinance says that the council will decide what trees are going to be.
Okay, well, that's
finish his
coming up,
comments.
as I understand it, to be defined as what a mature tree is, and I think Mr. Grant has provided you 3 different options. So that third option, if I'm understanding it, and I'm happy to be corrected, that the tree committee is recommending, and that I think Mr. Grant is proposing to you as the council, is use this broader definition. It's everything except Peruvian fan palms and Canary Island palms.
That's one of
the options.
Yeah,
That's
through
one
the
of the
chair.
options, and that's
Chair
what the
Bill.
tree committee was said to have proposed, and that's what I believe, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, I believe that's what Mr. Grant is, by extension, proposing to your council. I think that's overly broad. I think it's an overreach.
I think with the motion in this case, you're not off the track, but the motion, as I believe, was what they call it, bifurcated. It was divided. They divided the question, first the resolution, or pardon me, the ordinance that will define what a mature tree is, but all trees, regardless of size, they may be mature, but they're not necessarily designated. Is that correct, Bill? And we're going to do that separately.
Okay, well,
That's a
that
good
sounds
point.
great. The other comment I wanted to make is more at a 10,000-foot level, having to do with the tree committee itself. It's a bunch of volunteers. I laud that. You probably know I do some volunteer work too. Ms. Nolan is on the tree committee. It's a great committee, and I'm glad they do what they do. But I think it's a Brown Act responsive committee. They're advising you, the city council. They're advising the planning. They are advising.
the staff.
They're
Bill,
advising
please.
staff, and they're also providing advice to you, sir. That is by definition a Brown Act committee. I think you should look at the League of Cities and their Brown Act primer on the Brown Act. And Mr. Mayor, I'd encourage that. Thank you.
Okay.
And so, anyway, those are my points. I'd like to come back to the microphone later.
Sure.
If that
Absolutely.
warrants, based on the discussion.
We'll give
Thanks
everybody
so
a
much.
second chance at it. Fine, thank you. Okay, Kathy,
If I'm correct,
yeah, come on up.
I'll just make it quick. If I'm understanding this correctly, I think the better time for me to comment is when you're doing the resolution.
Resolution, okay.
So if you could call me up at that point.
Okay, so, does anybody else have something they wanted to add? If not, okay, we'll discuss this amongst ourselves on the motion.
I've already said my piece. I
Right,
think.
okay, and the comment that Renee made was my concern. I tried to read this and understand it and tie it together with trees, and I went on the internet and or the website. I didn't have as much luck, but that's probably me, not the website.
Well, I could make a comment that on
Just let me
on
finish,
that.
please. Let me
Okay.
finish, yeah. So the concern I have is that we be mindful of all the new regulations every time we put one on, that some of it appears we just lay the responsibility on the individual. And I think if we do that, we should be doing it very consciously. In this case, you're
Reducing.
We're reducing, so that's a good thing. Okay. Other comments?
I'll wait until we move forward.
Okay, well, we are now at the point of a vote on the ordinance then, I guess, right? If there's no further debate, or if you'll call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick?
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Councilmember Haney?
Yes.
And Mayor Johnston.
Well, I'm taking the coward's way out. I do not fully understand, although I'm glad to hear from Bill that it's going to reduce the thing, so I'm going to abstain. Okay, so we now have the
Mayor,
ordinance.
may I have a 2-minute break?
Okay, a 2-minute break. Yes, you may. Yeah. We can't, but we don't want to exclude our good friend, the Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay, sorry, I didn't mean to. Okay, so now are we on the second part of that action, which is the, I guess, the resolution to designate trees, and Greg already gave us the 3 options, or actually, there's 4 options, one which is not mentioned.
Yes, sir. Which we did say nothing.
Yeah, right.
0 is also an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the subject then, should we take public comment first, or do you want to, does the staff have anything they'd like to add? I know we've thrown you a curveball by dividing the issues, but.
I think, should we cover everything, Mr. Grant? The staff is, we've.
Okay, so the item is on the table, and those that want to speak to the protected, Steve?
There's not a formal public hearing requirement, because it's not in the zoning code for those watching at home.
Right. Okay, those who would like, have comments regarding the species that are to be protected, now is your chance. Kathy?
Mayor, council members, and staff, my name is Kathy Nolan. I actually have been part of the tree committee since its inception, but I'm here tonight not representing the tree committee. I'm going to be giving you my personal opinion. And I did want to say, basically, the tree committee is an ad hoc advisory board of professionals in tree-related matters and also other members of the public. And basically, we interact with staff. We don't make recommendations directly to city council. But I just wanted to be clear about that. So this item was brought to us, to the tree committee, and what I wanted to share was, I think there's, in my opinion, a better approach to handling this about the species. First of all, I'm completely for the our tree management. I think it, it's stated in our general plan and supporting documents like the Complete Streets Master Plan or maintenance plan. But I also know that there are a lot of tree species that are either invasive or growing where they shouldn't be. Maybe a bird dropped it, or they're impeding on a foundation or utilities and what have you. So I'm here to protect the community forest, but I also have a good sense of being reasonable. So something that I personally would propose would be having an exemption list. And it would include invasive species depending on where you were at. So if you're next to a waterway, you certainly do not want to have either species of pepper tree. You don't want to have certain palm species. You may not want to have eucalyptus tree. Why don't you want these things there? Because they actually pull water out of the waterway. A lot of times they're a fire hazard and they breed, well, to use the term, like wildfire, and they're displacing the natives, which displaces the wildlife habitat and what have you. So I think there's a very common sense way to approach this, and I think it would be, once again, a benefit to our city to maintain our community forests, but at the same time allow us to, within reason, have certain species on there that you could take out with a few exceptions. For instance, you wouldn't, you'd want to include, let's say, historical sites. In front of Chaparral, we have those old pepper trees. There may be a historic nature to that, so there would be some kind of a tier where that would be looked at. But anyway, that was just kind of an overview, and I would be happy to provide more in-depth information. But I also wanted to say that I personally have done like biological studies and what have you, and I think this is the most efficient way to accomplish what you're looking for. Thank you.
Other comments?
I have a question, and maybe Kathy can answer. If nobody else, can I do that now?
Yeah, I don't see any hands go up in the audience, so okay, go.
Let me see if I don't know if I know how to ask the question, but I do have a burning question. A few weeks ago, there was an incident at the Ojai Valley Inn where a lot of trees were taken down. And I don't know if there was follow-up on that. But I want to read this into the record, and maybe you can address how to prevent this as part of the ordinance.
Can I just, but, excuse me, but in for one instance, I'm actually working for the Ojai Valley Inn, so I don't want there to be a conflict of interest. I mean, if there's a question and I can neutrally ask it, I just wanted to be upfront.
Yeah, this is a general question.
Okay, good.
It just happens that it, and it has happened at other places in Ojai. I've seen it happen. When suddenly an entire grove of eucalyptus trees was, cut down all in one morning, okay? So I want to read this into the record because I feel it's so important. It is wrong, this is from the Ojai Valley News, January 20, 2017, a letter from Sarah Otterston.
Didn't she speak at the last council meeting?
Yes, but I want to read this into the record. And she's been here a few times, and I don't know if this kind of language can be incorporated in the ordinance or not, but I think it is so important. She wrote, "It is wrong to assume that just because a tree is non-native that it has no habitat value. Non-native trees may be phased out over time in a way that allows for other native trees to take their place." And in this situation, the trees had been, well, I won't read it all, but the point is that trees are habitat. So we're not only looking at when we take down a tree for whatever reason, is there a way to incorporate some kind of language, like if there's a nest in the tree, the time of year, so that we do remove trees that we think are better thoughtfully, with as little impact on the wildlife and the birds as possible.
Right, and a lot of that's covered under CEQA, as far as the nesting goes. So depending on what's going on with the project, that would be covered already, a biological study and anything with nesting and what have you. But, I mean, there may be further language that could be added. And I agree with you that, I'm not just saying, take every invasive out. There could be some criteria that could be built into the document. But I think at the same time within reason.
Okay,
is that
thank you.
criteria in this resolution, you feel? Or that's what my question, how do you put that in?
I think that's what we're working on, right?
That's, I mean, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
Sorry, pink slip. I think you guys are probably or hopefully on the right track. I definitely hope that you look at something that's more, I know that there's a lot of habitats and what have you in the trees, but I'm also looking out for life and safety. We talk about, the fishes and the birds and this, that, and the other, but I'm also concerned about the people who live and walk and enjoy underneath these trees. And I really hope that you guys give some consideration to that, to that segment of our population, or that segment of, people living or organisms living in Ojai. I hear so much about protection of this, that, and the other, but we have so many dangerous trees up there. There's so many trees that are very old. I was in a park today, and one of the trees had a palm growing in it. So I know there's a lot of invasive species out there, but just given a broad, as this other gentleman said, given a sort of a broad blanket, really puts a lot of restriction, on property owners and people who are trying to protect, their property, their tenants, people who live in Ojai. So I think hopefully you guys, take that into consideration. It'd be nice to have some of the trees protected. I mean, obviously the oaks, the sycamores, and what have you, heritage trees, mature trees that you want to specify, but don't make it so overly restrictive that we can't touch something, without having to go through, incredible, procedures and what have you. And I kind of chuckled back there when you were talking about fees, because about 11 years ago, I had a tree, and, after I spent about $6,000, $7,000 on a certified arborist to come out to give us, they bored it and they did all this, stuff to it. And finally we figured out that it was 70% dead, and we designed this structure around this tree. We had to take it down. But before we started talking about it, the city, not only did they want their permit fee, but they wanted a $50,000 mitigation fee. So please don't make it more restrictive than it already is, please.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff?
Paul.
Do you have any specific instances where you've had difficulty, let's say, at one of your properties, taking down, let's say, a palm or something?
Well, yeah, I have. I've been pleading with the city because I know this ordinance was going through, and I should have. I started out trimming these Mexican palm trees just one time. There was a specific time in the year, and maybe Kathy knows what it is, but it was like a certain week in May. And if I trimmed it in May, I could basically get all the fruit out, and I only could trim it once a year. And then that slowly increased to 2 times. And then for some reason, it's increased to like 2 times plus, I got to take care of it. So I made the decision. It's like, I don't want these palm trees anymore. They're very tall. They're like telephone poles to a certain extent. The only benefit that you get from these trees are, from a great distance, not within, the parameter or boundary of our property. So, believe it or not, there's a lot of guests who are like, oh, you got to leave those trees. That's what California is all about. You know what? They're a trip hazard. They have a little seed, and people were, they could slip and what have you. They really have become more of a nuisance. If they were at a certain height, maybe if they were at the 25 to 30 foot height, area, they're a beautiful tree, or I shouldn't call it a tree. They're not a tree.
Okay, but these aren't even being recommended by the ones who want to do everything, yeah.
He just asked a question about the palm, and yes, I do have property that has that.
Well,
and they're still there, and I'm waiting for this ordinance. It obviously just passed, and so I'm thankful for that.
Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. So as a thought, if Mexican fan palms and Canary Island palms are the only 2 being recommended, in the Community Forest Management Plan, there's a list of discouraged trees that do not include, well, it might include those 2 species, but there are several others, probably, 15 or so in the plan, that at least ought to start there, that ought to be kind of in the, you can take those out list without having to worry about getting an ISA certified arborist to bless it and then go into the permit vortex. The permit vortex I've been in, and I'm one data point, but I can tell you it was not a pleasant data point to go through. We had a house, damaged oak hanging over our house, that being a fully permitted structure through the city. And the permit process my wife and I had to go through for that was ridiculous. We ended up having to get 2 ISA certified arborists and a suggestion of getting a 3rd, all in the interest of getting a quote-unquote second opinion. So I don't want my compadres in the city that are in the same circumstances as my wife and I to have to go through that kind of thing. And I just, I like where you're going with the idea of making it simple, making it straightforward, preserve our urban forest because it is beautiful. It adds incredibly to the property values and the values of our city, but have some reason to it is all I'm looking for. So just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, take it back to the council. Any motions? Let's get a motion on the floor so we start going someplace if we're going to have a motion.
I just have one question of Kathy Noland. Do you see any value in, I hope nobody kills me for asking this, but what we did with cultural resources, we had a special meeting. This is just so important, and it affects so many people. Would there be value in having, because I wasn't here when this was first came before the council, a special meeting where we have discussion like we did with cultural resources, where the tree committee and different people affected and people that.
Okay, why don't we talk about that amongst the council, rather than really asking a citizen individually to. But,
well, okay.
it sounds to me like we are not ready to designate any more trees, at least not tonight. Is that,
I'd like to make a couple comments on that.
Yeah. Randy?
Well, I reviewed these, I reviewed the list, and it's, I think Kathy and I can both agree in it. There's a lot of trees that we like that are in the wrong places. So I think we have to acknowledge that. That there's just a lot, 2 houses down from me, there's probably one of the most beautiful Cedars deodora in this valley. And it's on the corner in the front yard, and half of the tree is on the neighbor's property, and the other half is on the owner's property. They've had 3 branches of at least 12 to 15 inches come off in windstorms. Beautiful tree, wrong location. So if a person wanted to remove that tree, they'd be jumping through hoops right now to do that. And so part of me says we need to streamline this, and we need to be able to identify species of trees that we don't feel have to have a mitigation fee attached to them, that we can recognize they're in the wrong place and that they're the wrong species. So I don't see any of that addressed in any of this language. That's one concern. The second concern, there's still species of trees in here in the recommendations that, again, I would call them, it's not necessarily they have to be native, because I'm not going to go that far, but they're just not desirable trees. Again, the house next door to me has the Tricia speciosa, the silk floss tree. They freeze. Again, it's a beautiful tree. It looks great in Pacific Palisades, looks wonderful in Santa Monica, looks horrible in Ojai. So there's just trees that are in here that I think that shouldn't be along with this package. And again, my bigger concern is when we get into mitigation fees, is we assess a property, and let's say based on some standard that we come up with $100,000 like the hospital of trees that had to be removed, and so we're telling that you've got to plant $100,000 worth of trees. Again, I can't go along with that. I think we can identify the fact that if you have a certain tree with a certain trunk size, maybe we designate the fact that the only thing that we're ever going to require the public is a 48-inch box tree or smaller, something that someone commercially could handle. But I think none of this is being addressed in this, and I think that we need a whole review of this.
Okay, well, it sounds like you concur that we're not ready tonight to do it. Okay, so I would recommend that we move on to the next item. We have approved the ordinance, or they had the second reading, so at least we've got that part taken care of. This is probably going to offend some of my supporters, but in the 45 years I have been here, I have not seen this. The oaks have been a problem, sycamores have been a problem, the big trees, the ones that were native that needed to be cared for, that people were not paying attention to. But I imagine if we were to take an aerial photograph of this valley, there probably is twice as much cover from trees as there was when I moved here. It's expensive to remove trees. I don't see people tearing trees out, to make room for something else. So I'm not quite sure how we got to needing to, I think our forest, or urban forest, is protected reasonably well, but if we are going to do more than that, I don't think we can do it tonight. So
I have one other thing, Mayor, I'd like to add to it too, is the fact that somewhere I read there was a comment in here about the fact that we don't have the ability to identify all of our public right-of-way trees. We should have a street tree catalog so that we can identify what we have in our public right-of-ways. We should identify all the tree species and all the trees that we have in our parks. I think that that's something that we can do. In fact, most cities have that. As far as public properties and things of that issue, I personally don't want to get in someone's backyard, figure out what kind of tree they have. But I think in public right-of-ways, in public parks, and things of that nature, I think that we should be able to come up with a tree count and figure out what species, what varieties, what we have in this community, and the best care of those, and actually initiate a program to do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item up is...
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, could I just make a very brief clarification? We do have a designated street tree list throughout the city. I understand the remainder of Councilmember Haney's request, and we don't have all of that, what you're asking for, but we do have a designated list for the street trees.
Okay, good.
A tree inventory, right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have the next item, which is important and has some time sensitivity, is the Ojai Basin Groundwater Management Agency Alternative Plan, and I guess Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to kick that off, you and?
I'll be very, very concise.
Okay.
We'll
be the judge of that.
I'll try to be. You can judge me. We received comments from contractor, Geosyntec. Mr. McClary circulated that. And this has to do with submitting a comment to the Department of Water Resources with respect to the alternative demonstration, which the city has gone on record of as being opposed to, and have some concerns. And so what myself, Councilperson Haney, with some input from a couple citizens, Mr. Spendero, Mr. Yee, came up with as quickly as we could to take the basic draft review that was circulated by Mr. McClary and turn it into a content appropriate for further formatting and submission. At least I'm going to suggest and recommend that we consider, and the agenda item is actually mislabeled. I believe it's agenda item 4, not agenda item 5, on the upper right showing a draft review. Is that my, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the handout is for 4, and that's the content that to be formatted that I believe, I'm not going to speak for Councilperson Haney, but I believe we agreed we were going to submit for the council to review.
Yes.
For submission to the DWR as part of the official city comment on the alternative demonstration.
And William, can you add to the fact that comments have to be in by the 28th of this month? Okay?
26.
26. So
Correct.
there is,
Okay, this is the same letter that was circulated electronically, but
Yes.
without comment? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a motion you'd like to make?
I'd like to move to approve proper formatting and submission of this content as part of the city's official position on the OBGMA alternate plan to Department of Water Resources.
and I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any, I don't have any, no, maybe I do. Let's, yeah. Oh, good, Bill, you came back.
There he is.
Oh, Kathy, Bill, and Peter, okay. Do I have the right one? Oh, this is 3. Where's 4? Bill Miley with Russell on deck.
Bill Miley, I'm confused. I heard what Councilman Wyrick said, and I don't quite understand. Is this council proposing that the draft review that was on the table out here by Geosyntec be submitted as the council's submission to the Department of Water Resources?
I'll let Bill
I'm not.
Wyrick respond to that, but
not
I
my
don't
time.
think that's exactly
It's
correct.
not my
but-
time yet, please.
Is it okay to?
Go ahead.
Mr. Miley, what the Geosyntec, what we did was to take the Geosyntec draft review and reword it and add to it. So it is Geosyntec Plus.
Did I miss that in the agenda item on the website?
Well, what was posted to the packet did not include, only included the Geosyntec review, draft review, and what we have circulated here is adding to that statement that was circulated and I believe put on the counter.
Yes, it was put out on the dais. I believe it was put out on the public
Yeah.
counter as well. Yes.
So it takes that basic framework and adds some content to it.
This is the proposed
It is an
document to be sent by
expression
the
of
council.
concerns from the city to
Yes.
asking the state to take a close look at what's being proposed.
This is going to be authored by the city council, including the Geosyntec.
It would be a comment by the city. It would not have Geosyntec's name on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just a couple of things. The website did not have the conclusion that's placed here in the paper document.
That was added.
And I think it's really important. Okay. So I have a few things to say here. I've been paying attention to the OBGYN agency on and off for years. So my comments on the Geosyntec company are below, as well as the alternative basin report, demonstration report that OBGN, YA, whatever, submitted. And I urge that this council find that the OBGMA alternative demonstration report is inadequate for our city and valley, and to urge the DWR to require a full groundwater sustainability plan for these reasons. I have read the report, and I looked at the company, and I realized it's worldwide, so it's quite credible. In their report, they say that the OBGMA stated in the report that it's not a groundwater sustainability plan, and that makes my point. We need a plan. We not only need it for the city, for the Ojai Basin, but for the entire valley basins. And the new Upper Ventura River Sustainability Management Agency is going to create a sustainability plan. So, unless the Department of Water Resources rejects this report and requires a full one, we're going to be stuck with what I call a fractured two non-integratable water document. One is sustainable plan, and the other a report on the past 10 years. And I would like to have another minute or so because I have some important things to say, if I get that.
Bill, you've basically said what the council has said so far.
Well,
so,
but I worked hard on this, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well,
I want to
you still
say
got a green light, so don't waste it, okay.
Doing what the OBGMA says they're going to do is like, I would say, like I've cared for my house for 10 years, and I'm going to keep doing the same damn thing for the next 10 years. But I haven't recognized that the houses deteriorate, the uses change, and the environmental impacts get different. And that's what I think it applies here. Geosyntec says, well, maybe they can manipulate the data a little bit so that we have a more clear view of the basin recharge, the storage, and usage. I don't think so. I think it's a foolish statement. However, see, we live with the results of weather, not a report of the 10 years of weather. Weather is determined by obviously unpredictable patterns every year, climate change, but weather is not based on the past 10 years. So I think it's foolish to allow the alternative demonstration report to be approved. They say they don't have any money, but the Department of Water Resources has, according to Larry Yee, $84 million. Just ask. And I cut out a lot of things I was going to say because I knew I wasn't going to have it all the time.
Okay. But we agree with you, Bill.
Well, I know that, but I want...
Okay, all right, so...
You know, I've waited a couple hours to do this, and I would like to have another minute or so, please.
Well, there are others who are waiting a couple hours, too, to finish up. Russell's waiting, too, so come on. Bill.
Come on.
You're...
In for dime, in for dollar, let's go for it.
Okay. So...
You're relinquishing your time?
No.
No. Yeah. Okay, Bill.
The fact that the agency had, this agency...
Bill,
What?
come on. I got to do it reasonably fairly, and I'm not going to give Russell 10 minutes when he gets up, whether he wants it or not. So
Okay.
it's Russell's turn.
Let me...
Mr. Miley, you've been warned that you're continuing to disrupt the meeting by speaking past the
That's
mayor's
okay. I'm not
allowance.
asking for the sergeant at arms doesn't need to come out. Bill, I'm sure is going to cooperate. He can come back in a minute if we still have to.
If I talk too fast, you'll understand why.
Okay, well.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I think all of us are very concerned about getting this planning process correct. The one concern that I want to bring forward that may not have been emphasized enough is the concern of what's going on with the unpredictability of our weather. The thing we know for sure is that the planet has gotten hotter, consistently hotter over a good amount of time, and the scientists say it's going to keep going. What we don't know is to what degree that will introduce the uncertainty in our water supply, to what extent it's going to threaten our water security. There's a lot of planning paradigms out there that look at water security from the old view of climate, where it changes slowly. I would encourage us to make sure that whatever planning happens, we take into account the rapidity with which weather can change. 5 years of desertification suddenly comes to an end. It comes to an end with tropical water coming into our community to replenish our water supply. On the one hand, yay, but on the other hand, are we going to go back to desertification, or are we going to see more and more intense tropical influences? All of this will make a huge difference in our lives, including the discussion about native species. If we become a desert, what are the native species for a desert? If we become a subtropical area, what are the native species for a subtropical area? So addressing these broader concerns, looking at any of our planning in that point of view is something that I think we as a group need to really take into consideration and figure out how you plan under these new circumstances. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Russell. Okay, I don't have any more cards, so I guess it's, we have a motion and a second to direct a letter to the state asking them to address these concerns that have been highlighted. I think everybody remembers that when this came before us before, it was a unanimous vote saying that we couldn't support what in effect is a request for an exemption from sustainable planning. I think that's still our position. So if there's no, Randy?
I just have one procedural question, Mayor. We're going to put this draft on our website, yes, as well as the submittal?
I would hope when it's properly formatted, yes.
Yes.
That's part of my motion, to properly format it.
So instead of reading into the record, what I'd like to add to the record is Mr. Yee's comments, so that we can post them on our website, because they're actually pretty valuable, and Mr. Ian Miller's comments, if you so please so. I'd like to, instead of reading these into it, I'd like to hand them, and so that they can be posted on our website.
On our water
Yes.
water
Yes, on
website.
our water website.
Is that customary that we do that? If it is,
I think if council okays it and council would like to put it up there, we can put it on there. We haven't done very much of that historically, but that doesn't mean that we could not do it.
These are just great comments, and the public needs to
These
see
are
them.
comments these individuals have.
Can't we just direct staff to do it? I don't think it needs to be part of your motion.
I just wanted to get council approval.
Right, a consensus is fine to add those to the website.
Okay, if there's no further debate on the Mayor Pro Tem's motion, call the roll.
Councilmember Francina?
Yes.
Councilmember Haney?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Mayor Johnston?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick?
Yes, and Russell, put please your own comments into DWR.
I have to remember what I said?
Yeah, write it down and submit it. Same with Mr. Miley.
And Councilmember Blatz?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. There's a lot of work done by many private citizens as well as the city staff and Councilman Wyrick and Haney. Thank you for that. We now have the review and discussion of the city's annual housing element.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was back on the agenda. It was pulled because we discovered some errors in the totals on the report. We have two recommendations. One, to take public comment on the report. It is required before the annual report is submitted to the state. I do want to point out the changes in the numbers. We added, since the last time that you saw the report, we added 18 second dwelling units, which were added through the compliance program. And we also added to the totals 8 multifamily units. Both of those totals will show up both in the revised total for the chart showing that our progress on our Regional Housing Needs Assessment, which is found on page 2 of the staff report, 5-2 in your packet. It also shows up on attachment A, page 1 of 7, table A, which shows the annual building activity report summary. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Kathleen Wold is also here to answer any questions.
My apologies, because I thought I had fixed all the typos and corrections on there, and so it is cycle 5, so I handed it out to you tonight. I went back between the first meeting and the second meeting and made this for you so it's very clear. I have 2014 on it, 2015, 2016, so beginning and end. So I hope it's all clear, and I did it on Excel, so the machine did the math for me, okay? So just so that we all know exactly where we stand. So I hope that that clarifies anything that might have been an error.
So that's Watson versus Wyrick.
Yeah.
Is it the computer or is it Bill? Did you find any others? Okay. Okay, Watson wins tonight. Do we have a motion? What do we need here?
Move to approve.
With thanks.
Oh, public, I didn't ask, is there
Thank you,
anybody in
Mr.
the
Mayor.
public? We don't have much left. And Bill's mad at me, not this Bill, the other one who stormed out. Okay, I guess we're,
I'll second it.
okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Mayor. Actually, just one. Kathleen, are there still 22 outstanding second unit?
Well, that's what I was told by staff, but I really verified that today. I mean, that haven't been issued. I verified that today, and it came down to like between 3 and 6. It really narrowed down, and I think there were some, I'm working on this to try, so just so you know where the confusion lies is some reporting is on issued, some reporting is on finaled. This reporting tonight is on issued, okay? And that's where staff is getting confused. But at this point for the compliance program, there's some that have been issued that have not been finaled, but there's about 6 that have not been issued that are languishing with some complete items that need to be completed.
So we'll narrow that number down between 3 and 6 and let the council know.
Yeah, we'll get it back.
Okay, very good. Other questions before we? Okay, okay, thank you, Kathleen. Okay, roll call?
Councilmember Haney,
Yes.
Mayor Johnston,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz.
Yes.
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Brings us to pretty close to the end of it. Do we have a report from the city manager tonight, or we?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Give me a moment. Let me get to my notes here. Thank you. One, I just wanted to note again for the public and the council that the city's appeal of the CUP that was issued by the County of Ventura for the Ojai Quarry, the city did appeal that decision of the Planning Commission, and that hearing has been set before the Board of Supervisors for March 7th at 1:30 p.m. And we are preparing to work with the community and other interested parties to present a strong case for the city.
Good, fine.
On the medical cannabis, the deadline for applications was yesterday. We received 21 applications. We are in the process of going through those and vetting them, making sure that they have all the proper submittals. Out of that, there were 8 applications that were seeking to have a dispensary and a delivery from one location. There were 3 for delivery only and 2 for dispensary only services. So we will be working through those.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask Steve? Steve, have we, how many are we, have we put a number out that we're going to allow? Is it?
The maximum that was established by my office was 3 dispensary and 3 delivery. And
So are you developing protocols as to how you're going to make the decision as to what 3?
yes, we have determined that. Once we go through and determine which are qualified applications and those that have met the background check and all the requirements, and review, make sure that everything is adequate as far as the application. Those that are then qualified would be put into, assuming we have more than 3, a lottery would then be held to determine who would get the 3 licenses for dispensary and 3 for the delivery services.
Okay.
What is the obligation of the city to continue those licenses after the state comes out with their guidelines?
Would defer that question to the city attorney.
We structured the program to be independent of the state licensure. Once the state issues guidelines, the folks would need to comply with the state requirements in addition to the city's requirements. They largely overlap. To the extent there was any conflict, the council could deal with it then. Further, the council retains the power built into the city's regulations to revoke them at any time or modify them at any time.
Okay, and when is your office going to have that, the amendments to the emergency ordinance?
We have that plan to come back in March. I forget whether the first or second meeting. 1 second. We have that scheduled for...
Well, we proposed to schedule it. We haven't had that discussion with the mayor yet.
Fair
but we
point.
would be asking to bring it back in
Okay,
March.
but we're almost
First
ready
meeting in
to do
March.
that. I mentioned this once before, but I'll mention it again, that my concern is that we not get out ahead of ourselves, and I've read input from people who know a lot about this nationally, but identifying us as sort of an isolated area, that argument, saying that we need to have 3 because with only 1 it's a monopoly, and I mean, they have some really good logic, and in a metropolitan area that certainly would be true, or in a place way out in the country, but when we are only 4 square miles in these valleys, and we have a population of, 20% of the valley population, maybe 25. It seems to me that the county of Ventura should be stepping up, and that we not just concentrate this all. This is not a criticism of staff. Staff did what they could do and what they were asked to do, but I would like the council to think about that a second time before we issue this, because a lot of the experts say that be careful how you do it, because you're going to have to live with it when the state comes out. State's likely to be very much broader than we are. I mean, much broader than we are, and they'll let us do as we please. But we've got Oakview, we've got Miramonte, we've got the city of Ventura, the city of Santa Cruz, which is legendary for their tolerance of this subject long before it was, legal for recreation, and they only have 2 in their whole city. And Santa Barbara, I don't think has anything right now. So I would hope that we wouldn't just take this all upon ourselves and then end up everybody else sitting the game out.
Johnston?
Yes.
I think it's very appropriate that when it comes back for the urgency amendments, that we discuss all of this. However, I think at this point, the council considered all this very carefully and felt this was a path forward, subject to the conditions that are in the licensing agreements. So I would object to aborting the licensing process. I think we should continue with the licensing process.
I'm not asking to abort.
And then review it at the time of the March meeting.
Right, and I'm only speaking in terms of number, not saying that we were going to do like a lot of places and said absolutely not. I think it should be accessible to our citizens, but I don't think we need to become the center of it right at this point. If we have 1 to get started, it would be nice, but anyway, I agree with you.
I think we should just leave it the way it is until we discuss it.
Right.
The policy debate, before any other members of council speak, because that would be a quorum, 3 on the item. The policy debate that you've started is exactly the item that we have put on the agenda for, presently proposed for the first meeting in March. I would suggest no further discussion of it tonight.
Very good. Thank you.
Sorry to cut you off.
Okay. Okay, we are now down. I have Norm. You sat patiently through all this.
Extremely patiently. Should have had you at first, Norm.
Well,
Did
thank
say
you very
the end
much.
of the meeting, so I wanted to...
Mayor Johnston, distinguished members of the City Council, Mr. McCleary and council, and just want to say on behalf of Fire Chief Mark Lorenzen and all the firefighters in the Ojai Valley, we're just really proud to have James as the Chief of Police up in Ojai, and I worked with him when I was a captain in 1996 at the Myers Oak Station, and it's like Allstate, we're in good hands, so thank you and welcome. Would like to comment, probably some good, bad news is that the rain event that is scheduled, both Jim and I will be on the OAS conference call tomorrow at 3, but is a significant event. They're saying 4 to 8 inches in the valley, with rain through potentially as far as into Tuesday. So the atmospheric river is going to establish, and it's going to be a significant event. I would like to say that the Ojai stations have sand and sandbags for residents if they need it. I would, Boy Scout model, be prepared. I'd encourage residents to get those sandbags if they're in areas that typically flood. It's rain rates, they're forecasting up to 1 inch an hour, which will have significant runoff and potentially some minor urban and stream flooding. So it's probably what we need for the lake, probably good news. But, the short-term disruption in some of the things in the valley, followed by strong winds with potential for trees going down, that sort of thing. So we are going to go into a Plan 2 flooding, increased staffing starting Friday through Saturday. So there'll be additional resources in the valley to handle an increased call load. I'll be working with James for issues that come up as far as public safety, but we'll make sure we have resources available to handle those calls as they come up with increased call load. So just want to make sure that I did let you know that.
Yeah. Norm, when do you think the storm is to hit? I know they say the weekend, but do we have any kind of timing?
Yeah, Friday. We'll get an update from National Weather Service tomorrow, but it looks like Friday is going to rain in earnest up and through dark, and then carry on into Saturday with showers through Sunday, and then another lighter storm Monday and Tuesday. So it's going to be a prolonged event with starting off with a pretty good rain event with potential 4 to 8 inches. So that's probably the best storm we've had in probably 6 or 7 years. So
yeah, welcome.
It's a good. It's like I say, it's a good bad thing, but it's a good thing for our water.
Stay there, Norma. Are we fully integrated with Public Works communications and coordination with the police and?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we work really good with city staff and tie in for, when the trees go down, that sort of thing.
And making sure the drains are cleaned out. And
yeah.
Well, more importantly, is staff going to be on standby, or is staff scheduled?
We've had some discussions about that. We're going to make that decision as we get closer to Saturday, like we did a couple of weekends ago when we had that one big storm predicted. We did have some additional folks come on board, and we can keep people on. If necessary, we will open the city's emergency operations center, but we hope that we won't get to that point.
Thanks, Norm.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
And did I hear something about a new fire truck?
Yeah, next week, yes. The answer is yes. It's being built in South Dakota, and I've got some pictures to show you next week when I give my 2016 year in review. But this next year, Ojai will get a brand new fire truck. It's a Rosenbauer 1500 GPM pumper, the newest of the fleet, and it'll be a nice addition to the
Can I volunteer to go with you to pick it up?
Absolutely. We'll put you in the driver's seat there.
Okay.
Thank you.
If there's, is there anything else for the good of the order? If not, okay, thanks, guys, we're adjourned.